Good morning and welcome to the Return Homestead. My name is Mike and my wife Marty and I homestead 6 acres in northeastern Kentucky. Today we were hoping to get outside and actually get a dog yard put in for sunshine, but last night's weather made it pretty obvious we weren't going to be getting outside to get anything done.
And it's cold.
It is cold. Actually, it feels colder outside now than it felt when it was, 6 degrees a couple of days ago? Yeah. So after getting up this morning and realizing we weren't going to get outside, we decided we needed to do something. And we normally would just have a project that we work on, some sort of a DIY project around the house where we're either participating in a remodel or we're trying to improve the home that we're living in. And we thought we'd just sit down and run through with you the 5 biggest concerns you need to address before you start your own DIY remodel. So about, 28 years ago?
Well, yeah.
Yeah, really about 28 years ago, Marty and I made the decision we were going to try to buy some land and live off of that land. And really that was when we made our homesteading decision. We didn't realize all that was involved at the time. And of course that's refined over the years, and we understand now that it was a quest to return to the land, return to labor, and return to life. And we've been encouraging you guys to take up that same challenge to try to return to the land, labor, and life, and try to find a different way of approaching the complications that the world throws at you. Things like where are you going to eat, what are you going to drink, how are you going to stay warm, how are you going to keep the rain off. In the beginning, Marty and I did exactly what you're doing now. We sat around and we watched all the shows about other people that were out there doing the homesteading that we wanted to do. And one thing that we noticed is they all took care of their own problems. If something needed repaired or fixed or they wanted to improve it, then they went out and bought the lumber, the nails, the screws, got the tools that were required, and they did the work. They made it happen themselves. It was all DIY effort.
Yes. We wanted to try. We wanted to do the what Chip and Joanne thing. We wanted to make our own space, and that's what we did.
And that was also how we financed our move forward. So as we did our remodels, we would then improve the property to a place where it was worth enough that we could sell it for a profit and move on to a larger property or one that had better advantages on the land. And we've finally managed to make it here. And we've discovered that there are 5 primary concerns that everybody needs to answer and needs to address before they get started on any kind of a DIY remodel. The very first issue that you're going to encounter is that you're not going to be doing the DIY by yourself. There's 2 people there, and you are never going to agree 100% of the time on what needs to be done.
I remember when we did the remodel in Nevada. The inspector came out and he was surprised that we weren't constantly fighting. He says that it's the #1 cause for divorce in his world for couples to do a remodel because they fight over everything.
If we were going to manage to make it through the end of a remodel without ending up in divorce court, we were going to have to separate some of the decisions. There were going to have to be areas of responsibility that each of us had the ultimate authority in. We made the decision, and it didn't matter whether there was agreement or not. That was the way things were going to be done. And for us, it came down pretty simply to, if it's the inside of the home and it has to do with how it looks and the colors and the workflow in the kitchen, that's all my wife's area. That's her area of expertise. That's where she's going to be working. So I allow her to make all of those decisions. And if she makes a decision I don't agree with, I just say, yes, ma'am. And we go to do it the way she wants to do it. And by the same token, if there is a question mark about how long the rafters need to be when we're putting on a section of roofing, she's not going to force me to do it her way. If she disagrees with me, she's just going to say, well, you know what you're doing, so you go and get it done. And I'm going to make those decisions to make sure that happens. But we decided which areas each one of us would have responsibility in. And both of us also had to agree that when it wasn't in our area and we disagreed, we're just going to let it go.
There's a lot of times that when we were doing the full remodel, starting with the Nevada depot, that we would sit and talk, or we would sit and study things out for long periods of time before we made any decision. And we bounced those decisions off one another. So we worked as a team. And that's what you've got to do, because your house is in total chaos.
Yeah, once you start that remodel, you're going to be in chaos for quite a while. And even within your area of responsibility, you need to be ready and willing to change your mind, and to do so readily. If you discover that through continuing conversation, your spouse was actually right and you need to be doing it a different way, don't double down and insist on doing it the original way. Go ahead and change your mind. Allow things to flow the way that they should. Second area of concern that you need to address before you get started, you're going to have a lot more that you need to learn than what you're aware of right now.
Unless you're doing this all the time. We weren't. We didn't know how we were going to be our own general contractor. We couldn't get people out to help us when we first started this, because we were so far out in the boonies, and they wanted a per diem on that. We were working on a budget, and we had a lot of learning to do. We didn't grow up with tool belts.
Now, neither one of us did. We had office jobs. Marty worked in basically in accounting in the transportation industry, and I worked in IT all over the place. We really didn't have the skill sets. Now, I had picked up a few of those in my short time that I spent in the Navy. I had learned how to use tools, and we just decided that's what we were going to have to do. If something was going to get repaired, we were going to have to do it. If something was going to get improved, we had to do it. There were no contractors to call, and that you're going to find the same thing. When you move out onto acreage in the middle of a rural community, the first thing you're going to notice is you don't have the same level of services.
You can't even pay for it.
Exactly. There's nobody to call. We mentioned that the other day when we were talking about our fireplace. There is simply nobody to call to have them come out and repair it. You're going to be dealing with that during your remodel, and there's going to be a lot to learn. Now, don't disparage YouTube University. We have learned a lot of good information off of watching other people do the things that we want to do on YouTube. If you're willing to get your hands in and give it a try, and get your hands dirty and take a chance of maybe breaking it and having to buy another one, you can figure out how to do this stuff. Just pick up YouTube and watch those videos, and don't be afraid of the professional level videos. The guy who's an expert in, say, stucco. If you want to learn stucco, then go watch that guy, and he's going to use certain words and language that you're not familiar with. Become familiar with that language. Learn to use the language of the trades so that you can communicate with your spouse and with other tradesmen. I can't tell you the number of times I've walked into a big box store and been staring at a wall full of electrical appliances and apparatus and having no idea what it is I needed, and bump into an electrician there on the electrical aisle and ask a question and get an answer, because I was able to phrase the question in a way that he was able to answer it quickly and easily and point me directly to the product that I needed. It's an invaluable skill. Learn the vocabulary and develop your own private language too.
Yes.
Learn to communicate husband to wife so that you don't have to fill in all the blanks.
He knows what a thingamabob is.
Right. If she says you need to do something about the thingamabob because the gap's a little bit too big, I know whether to grab a screwdriver or a wrench because I know exactly what the thingamabob is. So develop those vocabularies, use them, and you'll find that you can communicate much more effectively. And as you're learning, keep in mind that this is not information that you're accustomed to working with. It's not immediately going to be obvious how to apply what you're learning to the problem you're trying to solve. It's going to take some time.
That's the hardest part, is the amount of time. For me, I'm impatient.
Well, like the staircase.
Oh, with the staircase. We looked at that staircase for months at the depot. And I would sit there and study it out and think, how can we do this without putting a skirt, the board that goes up the side, because ideally it would have been put in when the stairs were put in, but it wasn't. And how could we make that look good? How could we showcase that? And finally one day I was sitting there and I looked and I thought, I know how to do it. and it turned out beautiful. So it's going to take time. You're going to figure it out, but don't be hard on yourself because you're not going to know everything. You're going to watch videos. You're going to look on Pinterest. You're going to look on different websites. And each one of these things is a stepping stone to your end product.
Another important concern that you need to come to grips with is that the cost of what you're doing won't be known until you're done.
Right.
Yeah, you're never going to be able to figure this all out up front.
You're going to find, especially when you're doing a rip out and a remodel, you're going to open a ceiling where the cats have been prowling between the floors, and you're going to have their cat box rain down on you, and you're going to have to replace everything. You're going to open a stairwell. You're going to find things there that you didn't expect. We've been very blessed in the fact that when we did do a remodel, we didn't find horrible things. But a lot of times you're going to find bad electrical problems or bad plumbing, and those things crop up. You adjust, you adapt, and you keep going.
And I think a part of the problem is we watch these remodel shows, and the remodel shows tell you how much money they spent to do these remodels, and they never give you accurate numbers. Y'all keep that in mind.
It's unrealistic.
Yeah, totally unrealistic. You're going to find that out when you start taking your own measurements and deciding exactly how many 2x4s and how many sheets of drywall you need and just how much paint it's going to take in order to cover that much space. You'll do the research yourself, and you're going to find out the costs are much higher than what you're expecting. And then you're going to get to the end of the project and realize you spent yet again even more money than what you anticipated. It's just going to cost what it costs, not only in money but in time as well.
You got to get creative. And one way you can get creative is to repurpose what you've taken out. We took an old beam out of the depot and we made it a fireplace mantle. It was a showpiece. It was old mill sawn, and it was beautiful. Or you take out walls in a mobile home and they become your trim in the rest of the house. You have to repurpose. We went and got a lot of wood from the Army Depot that had been sitting out in the desert for how many years?
Who knows, yeah.
And we took all of that wood and pulled buckets, 5-gallon buckets full of nails. We spackled it, we sanded it, we painted it, and it became this beautiful shiplap. And so you're going to have to get creative. Don't be afraid to use old stuff. Don't be afraid to go out on the Facebook Market or Craigslist and find an old source of somebody's trash. You can turn it into your treasure. Good enough's perfect.
Yeah, and y'all, it wasn't we that did all of that shiplap. That was my wife. I was busy with other things. She made all that shiplap that she wanted in order to do her fireplace and all the way down the stairwell into the basement. It turned out beautiful. It really did, hon. And it was done with scrap wood that we picked up out of the middle of the desert. So don't be afraid of materials, and keep all of the materials you rip out of the house. Don't just throw them into a dumpster and send them off to a landfill. You will find good uses for them, and that's a great way to help control those costs. In the end, you're either going to have to play this one of two ways. You're either going to have a very strict budget, and when you run into a problem, you're just not going to address it because it's not in the budget, or you're just going to agree to spend what it's going to cost to fix it. And I think that's kind of what we did.
It is.
Yeah, so it took us a lot longer. It always does take longer to finish a remodel when you do it that way, because you don't know how much money you're going to need going in. Not much more than a rough idea anyway.
Well, if you have a never-ending wallet, going new is so much easier.
Oh, so much easier.
But I have to tell you, the rewards we got out of what we reused and redid was huge. We did that, and we were very excited about it.
Yeah, don't be afraid to use help if you have the money to afford it and you've budgeted for it. When we started the depot, we had a contractor come out and he helped to rip some walls out and replace walls with beams, and that kind of construction we had never done, and it's a little too critical for someone to just be DIYing. So we wanted to make sure we had some engineering skills involved with putting a massive beam up in the middle of the house.
That took the neighbor's backhoe and removal of a window to put that in.
Yeah, we had to cut a window out and use the neighbor came over with his backhoe, and we used that backhoe to literally thread the beam into the house. It was quite an event to get that thing in there. So we were glad to have the contractor. We had budgeted for that. We had the money set aside for it. But when we ran out of money for the contractor, he went home and went on to other jobs, and we were left to finish. And we did all the rest of it DIY. Another concern that you'll need to address is, I think this is the fourth concern now, is that you're going to be living in a construction zone. And living in a construction project is not easy.
We lived for, I don't know how many months, in the maybe 400 square foot. Mm-hmm. There were 3 of us there at the time. We had plastic over the doorways. We had no kitchen. We had a microwave. The place was a mess. We had no heat. We had no air. It was 4 degrees outside. You've got to be willing to make those sacrifices or pay somebody else to do it. And we weren't willing to do that. This was an investment for us. What is the word?
We were looking to maximize our return on investment for our time and our effort.
Trade up.
Yeah, we were trading up essentially, but that meant it was going to trade up on our backs. And it took a serious commitment and an understanding that it was going to take as much time as it takes. And in the meantime, there's going to be holes in the floor and holes in the walls.
There were holes in the floors. You could see all 3 floors.
Yeah, all the way through, all the way down to the basement from up top where we were trying to live. So you're just going to have to commit to yourself that you're going to be okay with this until it can be fixed. There's no way to finish the project if you keep getting squirreled every other day by making sure you've patched that hole in the meantime. You'll get to it when you get to it. And the only other problem that we discovered living in a construction zone is it gets really hard when you're a self-motivated person to not always find just one more thing to do.
There's always one more thing to do.
Yeah.
And so when you're living in a construction zone, it's really hard to know when to quit. I got really good at noticing when he was getting tired, and it usually required cutting the same board 3 times or getting frustrated with something he was trying to figure out. Then I knew it was time to quit. But even then, there was one more thing I was going to push to get done. And that one more thing was something we didn't have to do the next day. And he was very good-natured about it. And I'll say, can we just fix this one thing and then we'll quit?
Y'all, she was my superintendent. Yes, she's the one that got the project finished in the time frame it managed to get done in, because she'd always insist on that one more thing. But when you do get tired, you need to understand your limitations. And when that measurement that you're trying to make takes 3 different throws of the tape before you're confident that you've measured it correctly, or you cut the board 3 times and it's still wrong, or you go and put all the screws down the board only to find out you've installed it upside down and you have to remove it now. When you start doing those things, that's a good indication that it's time to stop.
Don't work until you're exhausted. Yeah. We did that. We paid the price.
Yeah.
Don't work until you're exhausted. So if you're going to live in a remodel, my hat's off to you. We've done it twice now.
Yeah, I don't think we'll ever do it again. No.
When we bought this house, it was fully completed, yet there are still things that we want to change.
And y'all, that's another thing we'll get to here in just a minute. That's another one of those issues that we do want to talk about. But in light of understanding this construction project, the other thing you're going to notice is that there is construction dust everywhere, all the time. It doesn't go away. And if you're trying to live in the house, that means everything's going to be covered in dust.
you're going to spend several hours after your construction cleaning up the mess for the next day. It just in order to exist with paper on the floors instead of flooring and plastic on the walls instead of wallboard. You're going to have to clean it up as you go, or you're going to go crazy, or at least I do. I like things just so.
So you're going to have to commit to that up front. Don't wait until you're halfway through the project and decide all of a sudden that you just can't deal with the dust. The fifth and final concern that a lot of people really don't think about, and I think it probably lands them in more trouble than anything else, is you're running a big risk of getting injured while you're doing this kind of work.
When we redid the depot and we took the main stairway out, like I told you, you're going to find things you don't expect. And we found rats' nests. We found cat litter above where we ended up putting the stairway. All of these things, even though we were using our safety protocols, it still got into my lungs, and I'm paying for it to today. So you're going to fall off ladders. I don't know how many times I've missed last two rungs.
Missed the last two rungs on the ladder when you're coming down because you forgot just how high you were, and you're wearing safety glasses and there's dust everywhere and you can't see anything. Yeah, you're going to miss those last two rungs and try to come off the ladder too soon.
So just smile and take it with a grain of salt. What we used to do, I remember coming down the ladder and missing the last two rungs and pulling the whole ladder over on top of me. And he is up 3 floors and I'm yelling, "I'm okay." And he said, "Okay," and he would move on.
Part of our private language that we had, if you made a loud noise in the house and the people were elsewhere in the house, you always had to yell out, "I'm okay."
Because it saves you a lot of time. Are you okay?
Yeah.
So, yeah, you're going to get hurt. You're going to
you're going to get sick,
fall down the stairs.
Something. Yeah, falls are really a big deal. 40% of all household deaths happen in falls. That's what I found on the internet. 40%. So when you start talking about going up and down a ladder and carrying a paint bucket or a sheet of drywall that you're trying to put up on the ceiling, and you're going up and down the ladder trying to do that, yeah, you're running a risk of getting injured here. 30% of all household deaths happen from poisonings. Did you know that? And you're talking about bringing all kinds of chemicals into the house and spraying them in sprayers all over the walls. And that, of course, goes above and beyond the infections that you might encounter. You're going to be opening up walls and removing parts of the house that can expose all sorts of dangerous pathogens. You don't know anything about the lead or the asbestos or other things that might be in there.
Well, in the depot, we opened the wall to find a blackbird buried in it.
Yeah, who knew? We opened up the wall and there's this framed box inside of the wall that had a bird that had been put into the wall when the wall was made.
Is there a meaning behind that? I mean, do you know of a meaning?
We couldn't find one. We didn't look too hard. We weren't really that curious.
All I know is he told me to get out of the house until he removed the bird. But yeah, you never know what you're going to find.
So those are the 5 biggest concerns that we saw if you want to enter into a DIY project, whether you're buying land that has an ugly house on it and you're going to do that work to fix it up, or you need to fix up your home in order to sell it at a profit so that you can leverage that into a larger piece of land. Those are the 5 biggest concerns that we thought of. And in the end, though,
there's a big pro on all of this.
Huge.
So the reward for doing all this work is you can turn around and look at it and say, I did this myself. Like when I did the fireplace, I built that. I've never built anything. I built the fireplace around. I did the German schmear on it. I did all of the shiplap, and I was proud of what happened, what came out of it. And when we had buyers come by, they made a point of telling us, this house is beautiful. We did that. So it's a huge reward for all of your hard work.
Yeah, I know that's for me been one of the biggest reasons why we've continued to do all these little DIY projects. It is just that satisfying. When you can go out and look at a window that's in a western wall and it's almost 20 feet off of the ground, and you figure out how to not only remove the window, but build a scaffold that would allow you to work on the now opening that you want to close, frame that all in, get it all covered up, properly sealed, and then put stucco on the outside of it, none of which I'd ever done before. And you get it finished up and it's all buttoned up and looking good and serving its purpose. It's a real satisfying feeling, especially knowing that house is going to continue to stand long after I'm gone from this planet. It's a really satisfying thing to know that you participated in building something that beautiful and that useful.
And it was. And the other thing is the reward for doubling your money. I mean, if you're going to put in all the blood, sweat, and tears, you're improving your investment, and it allows you to sell and buy better.
So when we moved to Kentucky, we didn't even have a mortgage. Now we ended up with 50 acres, a lot more acreage, 2 houses, which just meant 2 more remodels to do.
Which we did.
Which we did, and then we ended up selling that place. And now we've got just 6 acres. But there's 6 well-watered acres that have a decent barn, and most of the perimeter fencing is up, and we've already got a lake on the property for water, and the pasture has already had animals running on it, so it's ready to handle animals already. We couldn't do that where we were at. It was going to be 10, 15 more years.
And we have a completed house.
We have a completed house.
Once you know you can do this, you will always redo anything.
Yeah.
So once you strap on a tool belt, you learn the trade, you learn that you can affect change, you're going to always want to change it. And like I said, we live in a completed house. But oh no, we're going to put lights in, we're going to put shelving in, we're going to do this. We want a bigger patio. Once you learn those things, be prepared. Put your seatbelt on because you're going to want to change everything. I'm telling you.
And the world just literally becomes your oyster. There is nothing stopping you at that point. You can strap on your tool belt, go find a stack of lumber, and you can build whatever you want or need in your life. So it is a very good end to a lot of stressful work and stressful time as you work through this project. But if you think about these concerns and you deal with them up front, you can do this too. You can use your DIY skills that you develop to return to the land. There will always be labor to do, and you can return to life as well.
So don't be afraid to try. We weren't afraid to try. That's what got us here. Yeah. We were absolutely not afraid to try anything. And the benefits you'll get out of it are huge. So try it. Do it.
I guarantee you out there in the corporate world, you are not going to find any place where your time is going to bring the same sort of return on investment that you will get from doing a simple DIY remodel.
There's always going to be more to do. You're always going to want to change it. Just remember, your house doesn't need to be a showpiece. It's just good enough. Good enough's perfect.
As long as you're comfortable,
then you're fine.
Then it's good enough. We do appreciate you joining us on the Return Homestead today. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, would you please just take a moment, open that window up and hit the subscribe button. And while you've got the window open, if you haven't figured out how to hype a video yet, if you wouldn't mind, go ahead and figure that out while you got it open and get this video hyped so that we can try to get the message out to more people. We really do think that it's time in the history of our country that a lot of people need to get busy returning to the land, labor, and life. And we're encouraging everybody we can to join us in that effort.
Until we see you next time, thank you, God bless, and bye-bye.